Hey Bookends! Welcome to a 10-minute book review. I'm 10. This week's book review is going to be on Ember Queen by Lauran Sebastian. So if you're familiar with our channel, you'll know that we did book reviews on the other two books. Lady Smoke, which is the one right before this one, and then the one that started it all, Ash Princess. We will try to leave a link hopefully somewhere to them, or put it in the description. But to start right off, we like to start every book review with a star point, as in out of 10 stars, how many stars this book garner, and also a rating, as in if this was a book, what would it be? If this was a movie, I'm sorry. If it was a movie, what would it be rated? Star point, this book is a 6 out of 10 stars. So it's a good read. It just scored very low for what I was expecting, but is still an awesomely good read. For a rating, I would say it'd be in the PG-13 realm. There's no sex, very little cursing, and it's on the tame side. And in the way of most of the stuff that would make it a PG-13 comes from violence, but the violence isn't heavily described, it's just mentioned. So just jumping right on in. We're back with Theodosia, or Theo. She has just came out of the fire cave, and it turns out she's been in there for about 2 weeks, and the first person that she sees is Heron, but we don't really know who she sees first, honestly, because you can hear Heron and Blaze through her. Long story short, in that regard, she was seeing visions while she was in the fire cave, and she knows that they're not real. Like, she saw her mother, and she knows her mother is dead, so it's not like she saw a ghost or anything like that. She knows that this is a vision, and you get visions in these caves gonna test you. And one of the visions I thought was very interesting. This isn't a spoiler, it's not going to give anything like away, but one of the visions, one of the tests that she had was, she was like gardening with her mom, planting seeds, and her mother is like, you know, and when she's like digging to plant these seeds, she hears voices screaming for her, calling for her, or moaning for her, you know, her people crying for her. And so she's like, Mom, I gotta go. And her mom was like, no, just stay here with me, and I promise I will keep you safe. You'll never have to worry about anything. You'll never have a care in the world again. And Theodosia decides to leave her mother, the vision of her mother, to go after her people. And the interesting thing is, if Theodosia had chosen to stay in the fire cave, then she wouldn't have to worry about anything ever again, because she would have been dead. She would have starved to death. So she would have died, and in that way been with her mother, because her mother is also dead. If I have to say anything about how this book progressed, the first book was a steady progression of character development and also plot development, because we see Theodosia going from this slave mentality, princess. She's a princess, but she's also more like a vassal. She gets whipped. She's not treated well, even though she's dressed spectacularly as a well-dressed trophy, basically, who can be beaten at any time, and is beaten at any time, and is beaten publicly. So we go from this person who had a really good character arc. Like, side note, I hate when you get into a YA and the main character is this downtrodden, beaten up, like just horribly abused person, but they're always witty and like, yeah, I know that you burned my house down and you drowned me and you beat me every day, but I'm talking back. That's not realistic. It just isn't. Self-preservation is going to kick in at some point, and at some point someone's going to shut up. So I appreciated how in the first book there was character development showing that, yes, in the beginning she was meek, not because she was explicitly a meek person, but because all these horrible things had happened to her from a very young age upward, and she was being raised by people who hated her. So of course she's meek, because she knows I have to be this way in order for me to survive, and surviving right now is the most important thing. And so we go from that to her being willing to fight for her people. And then in Lady Smoke, she's met her aunt, and they're going to try to find nations to help beat the Kovaxians. And that one is more political. It is more of a thinking book. Because now they're going through different strategies. They're talking to a lot of people. They're trying to get into people's minds and trying to get out of their own. Finally, in this book is kind of a mix of those two. It's kind of strategic, and also it's kind of action-y. Most of the action comes towards the end. There are some interesting characters that are brought into the book. We get to meet Cress's mom. We also get to find out why Cress's mom left Cress with her dad. And the ending, not spoiling it, this is not a spoiler. The ending to me was very dissatisfying. I don't feel as though the newer characters, like male, I don't feel as though some of the newer characters were well defined. I guess that's probably because they were just kind of filler. I don't know. Artissima and Male kind of serve the same purpose. They're kind of like just the snarky kind of... One is like the snarky sidekick, which is Artissima, and the other is kind of like the snarky antagonistic ally. The snarky antagonistic ally, kind of. There were some high points. There were some low points. Heron ends up falling in love with Eric, who is Soren's brother. And some horrible stuff ends up happening to Eric and Soren because Cress decided she just wanted to be an evil person. Here's where my pet peeves come in. Basically, it's a good read. If you've read the series, if you read book 1 and book 2, I highly recommend reading book 3. It's a good series. Here's where my pet peeves come in. There isn't really a love triangle, but Theodosia is so much about her people, so much about her land, Astria. She's so much about her people, and she's doing everything that she can to protect her people. And yet when it comes down to it, the person that she ends up falling in love with is someone who was a part of the people who abused her and played a part in abusing her. Now, I say played a part because Soren didn't directly abuse her, but he benefited from the abuse that was given to her. He was also a part of the people who were actively abusing her people. So they were using people who had gone mind mad as berserkers, like they were sending them into war so that they would just go crazy with their powers and kill people. He was actively a part of using her people, the Austrians, as slaves. So I understand that Soren is not a horrible person, and a lot of his actions were based upon him also trying to survive. Because in the Clavaxian system of things, just because you're the child of the current ruler, that doesn't mean that you're going to be the next ruler. You still have to show that you're strong enough to do that. So I understand that a lot of his actions were based upon the political scene that he was born into, raised into, and was being forced to acclimate to. But that doesn't change the fact that this particular person was a part of the system, an active part. Not like a secretary who just filed papers, an active part who gave orders. Not only benefited from her people being devastated, but actually gave orders in regards to what to use those devastated people for. This is who she chooses to fall in love with, even though she's so in love with Astria. When it comes to Blaze, which in the first book, now if you're not familiar with the books, Blaze is a fellow Astrian. In the first book, it kind of makes you feel like she's kind of in love with Blaze. In the second book, it kind of cools that down. In the third book, it's non-existent. And she does mention, I think twice, that she loves Blaze, but it's like not in that way. I was very irritated. It's like she doesn't have to be with someone she doesn't want to be with. I get that. I would have liked to have seen her with Blaze. I think what happened to Blaze was horrible. Did not like it. Could not get behind that. Was not happy with it. It served no purpose. how how Blaze went out served no purpose. It's okay. You know how some people drive the plot even though they're not the main part of the plot? That they're not the antagonist or the protagonist, but they just kind of help move things along, and you can see that they're helping to move things along. Like when Rue was murdered in Hunger Games. You know, Rue was not the protagonist. Technically, she wasn't even the antagonist either because she wasn't trying to kill Katniss. She was just trying to not be killed. But when Rue dies, you see that helped to move the plot along because Katniss hated being there in the first place. But that really made her hate the entire system to see this innocent little girl die in her arms. And in the Hunger Games books and Hunger Games movies, you can see that Rue's death helped to facilitate the rebellion. Even though she wasn't a main character, even though she was nowhere near a main character, it helped to move the plot along and facilitate the actions that took place at a later time. What happens with Blaze, once again, no spoilers, but what happened with Blaze served no purpose. He was trying to kill Cress, and he was trying to do it in a targeted way using his earth powers, and as it turns out, that didn't even happen. So he wasn't able to kill Cress. Now, something else about this book that irritated me, it kind of had like a Game of Thrones type of ending. So if you're familiar with Game of Thrones, I haven't read the books and I don't watch the show, but I know the plot points and things like that. So a lot of people were not happy with how Cersei died. I don't think that this is a spoiler for anyone who watches Game of Thrones because it happened like a year ago. And so how Cersei did all these horrible, wretched, wrong things. And she ends up dying when a building collapses on her. So there was no justice to it. She died when a building collapsed on her. And she died with her brother, who was also her lover. And I guess she was pregnant with their child. Yeah, a lot going on. But a lot of people were mad because there was no justice served. It was just, oh, she's dead. That's it. When it came to Cress did some horrible stuff. Like stuff that wasn't even necessary. Like she just had thousands of people killed because it was Wednesday. There was nothing else to do. She burned out Eric's eye with her hand. Burnt, like scooped his eye out, burning it while he was awake. Burned dude's eye out. There was a cavity where his eye was. It was so bad. Heron couldn't fix it because, you know, Heron is able to help people when it comes to like having a medical issue. He's able to help heal people. Heron, it was so bad Heron couldn't fix it because he couldn't grow the dude a new eye. And she did it just because she wanted to. Like, this is just a Crest thing. What irritates my soul is that Theodosia was so hard pressed when it came to Blaze. Like when it came to Astrians, she is so hard pressed that whatever I do is going to be for Astria. So Blaze, I like you, and I think I might love you, but we can never be anything more than that because you're too much of a distraction. Not because I don't really like you, but because you are too much of a distraction and I could never love you fully. But then when it comes to the Kovaxians, Soren, she can overlook the fact that he was a part of the system, active part of the system who held her people down and used them for their own gain. And with Cress is a horrible flipping person, just horrible. And she has killed so many Astrians for no reason. And she has maimed a dear friend of hers, as well as Soren. But when it comes down to it, okay, Cress is captured. And her and Theodosia are having a conversation. Cress is in a cell. And this isn't really a spoiler because this is the last book in the series. So you know it had to come down to something. So Cress is in a cell. And Theodosia is like, okay, dude, so here's what it is. you're a bad guy and you did some horrible things, so you're gonna be executed in front of everybody tomorrow. It's gonna be long, and it's gonna be painful, and you're gonna feel everything. You're gonna be humiliated. And Cress is like, okay, did you come to get my head or what? And Theodosia is like, because you showed me kindness when I was younger, I will show you kindness with the same thorns that you showed me kindness. Theo is supposed to be the queen of a people. People that she loved has died during this war that Cress decided was necessary to have. Her own people, Ashians, murdered. She even saw a little girl murdered by Cress. Ashians. But when it comes down to it, she's like, okay, Cress, well, you were kind of sort of nice to me when we were younger, even though I was a kind of a slave, so I had no choice but to be your friend, and you were kind of sort of nice. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give you this dagger, and you handle your business. So she hands, I'm sorry, I can't even talk because this part makes me so angry. She hands Cress the dagger, and she goes to walk away, like, go kill yourself. Do it in private. Do your thing. Handle yourself. Cress says, wait. Don't leave. I don't want to die alone. This heaven killed thousands upon thousands of people. Burned a dude's whole eye out. Burned words onto Soren. Like, just was like practicing cursive on his body. That will never go away because it was burned too deep in. So she basically branded a person multiple times because she was bored, because it felt good to do it. But she's like, but don't leave me, because I personally do not want to die alone, and I would like to not to die alone. And what does Theodosia do? The woman for Astra? She stays there with her. And the worst thing that she says to her, like, okay, Cress is like, you know, if there is an after, I hope to see you there. Like, she's genuinely like, I hope to see you there. And Theodosia is like, if there is an after, you won't be there. That's your sickest burn. No, like, you're supposed to be the queen of these people. Give these people what they're looking for. They've been like slaves since you've been like 6. Give these people what they were looking for. The Astrian people deserve to see Cress suffer. After everything that they were put through, after all the murder she committed, after all the vile things that she did, they deserved that. I think the author tried to make it sound like, okay, well, Theodosia is not blood hungry. She's not bloodthirsty, I should say. It's not about Theodosia, though. It was not about her. It was about her people. And then with you know, Soren saying, okay, well, I know that you don't marry, because she's like, queens don't marry, and I have no plans on changing that. And he's like, that's cool. I'll take whatever part of your life that you're willing to give me, as long as I'm going to be a part of it. So basically, she's just gonna like make babies or whatever with him. And Blaze just has no part at all. I was hyper pissed. To me, the ending, I didn't like the ending. That wasn't exactly the ending. There's more to the ending than that. But I didn't like it. Did not like it. Did not like the ending. Was not a fan. Definitely not a fan. But if you've read the other 2 books, I would highly recommend reading the 3rd, because it wasn't horrible. It just wasn't what I wanted. And if there was another book in the series, I probably, because of what happened with Blaze and because of how Theodosia behaved in regards to Cress, I would not check in. Overall, the author is a good person. She seems like a good writer, I should say. I don't know if she's a good person or not, but she's a good writer. It just seems like she lost steam between book 1 and book 3. And so we were presented with a soft ending as opposed to a hard finish. Well, that has been our review of Ember Queen by Lauran Sebastian. If you like what you see, I'm just looking at the book again because I love this cover. Well, I probably have it over here somewhere, or over there, over here, somewhere. Anyway, if you like what you see, please like and subscribe. Bye, Bookends.